Want to go to
Exactly.
Douglas Holtz-Eakin right now, the former director of the Congressional Budget Office. He knows exactly what we're talking about here with inflation. And I'm done. Doug, I promise you I'm done with this because I go too far with these things. And even family members say, you got to stop. You just have to stop. But what the shell is going on with, oh, okay. What is going on with this inflation stuff? Because when it comes to food, that's one area where it's not budging. And all that gets factored into what the Fed is watching. I'm just worried if the Fed sees what's going on with eggs, it's going to go ahead and hike more. What?
Well, I think it would be premature to celebrate the end of inflation, that's for sure. Certainly food prices have been the drama in recent months. We've gotten a lot of relief on the energy front, but the thing that jumped out of the report we got this morning on prices for consumers and their spending habits was something called the market-based personal consumption expenditure, excluding food and energy. That's a fancy way of saying, let's go look at actual prices in actual stores. Let's take out the food, which has been jumping up, and the energy, which has been bouncing down, and look at the trend. If you look at that inflation, that's 4.8%. It's a long way from 2%, which is the Fed's target. More striking, it's only down from a peak of 5.4%. So they did all that work to get it down just a little bit, and they have a long way to go. So I don't think the Fed is done. And that's not news that a lot of people want to hear, but you'd be cautious if you thought they were going to quit right now.
Yeah, and that personal consumption expenditure, and particularly the core one, leaving out food and energy, Fed follows both. Right. But that's one of their favorite numbers. So armed with that data, I know the expectation is they're going to hike rates a quarter percentage point next week. Are you in that crowd that says that's what we see?
I think that they're going to continue to raise rates. They've clearly signaled they want to do it in smaller steps, and I think the softer inflation that we saw gives them the reason to move to 25 basis points. You know, the other piece of data that we got this week was the GDP for the fourth quarter, and that I think should give us a little bit of confidence in the households. Today's report was weak for December, but for the fourth quarter as a whole, consumer spending was pretty solid. Goods spending rebounded, services has remained strong. The concern I have in those data are the investment data. Equipment investment was negative for the second quarter out of 3, and in every post-war recession except the pandemic, it was business spending that led the downturn. And so I'd say keep your eye on that. If you see the business sector start to give up the ghost, then we've got a real chance of recession. Yeah,
you know, while I have you here as a former CBO director, you know the CBO study that came out that says within 10 years, the Social Security Trust Fund is going to run out of dough. I don't know how accurate that is, but 10 years is not that far away. What did you make of it?
It's here. I mean, that problem is right now because people who want to retire need to know what the deal is going to be, and they got to start making plans. If they're 55, they have to sort of get their house in order, and so they need to know what the fix on Social Security is going to be. Now, is that forecast accurate? Yeah, pretty much, because most of Social Security is driven by just the aging of the population, and that happens 1 year every year. So they're not off. This is a problem that Congress needs to take up, but so far I see no momentum on that front.
All right, we'll watch it closely. Doug, always good seeing you, my friend. Douglas Holtz-Eakin, once ran the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, out with some numbers that are a little disheartening.